Om Namah Shivaya.
Yeah. Well, Gregory, yeah, I guess we'll get right into it. Gregory, welcome to the Divine Shakti Arts podcast. I know we had a little break. And
Think about that name, Divine Shakti Arts Podcast. How cosmic can you be? It's good, huh?
yeah,
Divine.
it's fulfilling, it kind of reminds you of the purpose when
Mm.
you say the name, okay, like this is not your ordinary life adventure. It's tied with the divine and the divine aspiration. So yeah, and that being said, there's you, a wonderful artist that we met in Tiruvannamalai, India, and you came to our new adventure that we're setting up there, a new red dot kitchen, and we've come to know you pretty well, and as an artist myself, it's been a joy to see what you do and then look back into your history and just see that these beautiful works of art that I personally really resonate with. And I think it has to do with that you are bringing the spirit into your art, and that is a core value for you as well as me. Um, yeah. So yeah, thank you so much. I feel like it's the real purpose of art is to kind of, bring the underlying goal of life into form, which is, which I believe is, God is divine, and let's manifest that. Let's reveal that through our creations. So yeah, Gregory.
One of
So
one of my languages lately is to say I'm endeavoring to create art that reminds the viewer of their own inner self. I don't need to express politics or my own stress or personal expression. I'm trying to make something that, when received, is turning the viewer inward into their own nature.
hmm,
And I've also been noticing, because this is fresh in my mind. I'm working on a video and I have an art show, and so the
mhm.
artist statement is all fresh in my brain. I notice that I'm interested in some principles that really are spiritual. Um, the unity that is in duality,
Hmm.
the transformation of common materials in such a way that they reveal a cosmic uh, meaning. Um, Art that is more quiet. I've actually been pretty expressive and pretty with a lot of bright colors and
Right.
strong energies and gold leaf. But
Hmm.
I also want to have a series, or I notice a change coming, where there's a little bit more monochromatic, a little bit more subtlety, giving the viewer some respect for their own ability to perceive. I don't need to shout quite so loud to them,
Right.
hey, look at
Yeah,
this. So
yeah.
that means I'm maturing.
Yeah.
I, I said something the other day to a person. I said, you know, there's no difference between becoming a better human being and becoming a better artist.
Yeah, I love that.
It's just how it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of a burden in a way if you get too intellectual about it, but it's also it means that your art and the practice of making art is your sadhana, is your
Yes.
spiritual practice.
Hmm.
There's
Right.
no gap between, oh, now I have work and now I get to go to the studio. Um, they're not different things. In Tiruvannamalai, I have many years here, and the Ramana Ashram down the road has been the place I've spent 8 hours a day in there, weeks and months on end,
Hmm.
just in meditation. And lately, I've realized the actual lessons I have to learn: organization, discipline, um, putting things away when I'm done with them, cleaning as I go, these basic normal stuff I cannot learn sitting in the ashram.
Mm.
I can only learn by working. And so that's kind of been a blessing. And I've spent a lot more time in the studio than in the ashram in the last 4 or 5 months.
Wow.
Let me ask you a question. I know you have this great relationship with Simran and Red Dot, and it's your father passing. I mean, there's a lot of world things that have gone on for you. But do you miss India at all?
Now I'm starting to feel the call a little bit in my heart. Yeah, it's been about a little over a year. Um, and I think when I left, I was like, okay, I was fine. Because there's lovely things here too. And
Yeah, for sure.
there's like beautiful, the space that I'm in right now, it's a really wonderful space for creativity and making things happen. So I like it here, but sure, yeah, I'm starting to feel that call again, and then
You're in a slightly protected environment there, if I understand right. Red Dot, New York, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah, you're saying
so
protected from like outside, like
so
worldly drama.
so the
Yeah,
best thing about not being in America for me is I'm not inside the thought forms of politics, of Trump, of Musk, of blah blah blah. I mean, it's the news out over there, but it has nothing to do with me.
yeah,
And a further blessing is I'm not immersed in Tamil culture either. So all of its problems I'm free of, the thought forms, that
hmm
come with language. I mean, I can get stuff done in Tamil, but I, wow, let's think about this. Is being free of culture a good thing? In some ways it is. But also as human beings we're in a collective called Earth or our country or our family or so maybe we need, and who are we communicating with? Who's buying our art? Who's looking at it? Where are we making it from? How do we get our supply? So we're in culture. Oh, this is an old phrase you've heard: be in the world but not of it.
right, yeah,
And so maybe this is the blessings of this a little bit spiritual life, a little bit art life. We're in the world but we're not of it.
hmm yeah, not getting caught up in the world. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's to contribute, to its growth or transformation in some little way, by bringing our own heart forth. That's probably the way
I
to
mean, we
go.
can't
Yeah,
we can't sleep all day. We got to get up
yeah,
and do something.
yeah,
And if we're lucky, and I consider you to be very blessed, and me too, we have this added influence of what we'll generally call spirituality, but we can specifically name as living teachers. To be around the conscious, to be around saints is
yes,
a great lesson. We get to see that there is such a thing as higher consciousness. And further, there is a transmission that comes, especially from the enlightened to maybe me, I'm enlightened, Doc, why not? But I mean, we can say less than or more than. I don't
yeah,
need to do that. It's just
yeah,
one thing. But so you're really lucky with Simran. I'm really lucky with the saints and figures that have come into my life. No merit whatsoever. Gregory has deserves none of this life that's come from Maharishi, from Amma, from Ganga, from quite a lot really over
yeah,
the years.
yeah.
Um, Simran came to my birthday. I mean, Jesus. so so we have this word that's a wonderful word in English and it's good in Sanskrit too, kripa or grace. We're on the Divine Mother grace plan and not deserved. That's why it's grace. It's
hmm
just coming, not from anything I ever did, uh, not punya, as they call it, merit. I mean, certainly pay attention and we can the more aligned we are within our own selves, the more grace we can say comes.
hmm
But it came as a blessing out of the blue in my life at a fairly young age, and I have no idea why.
Yeah, the spirituality in your life, you're saying.
Yeah, meditation,
hmm
support of nature. There's a wonderful phrase in Sanskrit. In English, it would be the means gather around sattva. And sattva, the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. The means means support. Whatever we need
Hmm.
seems to come when. Well, I guess we've had other gurus too. Rolling Stones. You can try sometime. You just might find you get what you need.
Yeah.
Or if you grew up in America, there's Alfred E. Newman in Mad Magazine. What? Me worry? You remember that character? Did you ever know him?
I
Or
know of the
Popeye.
yeah,
Popeye this
I know of the
Mad
magazine. Yeah.
Popeye. Popeye. I am what I am. I mean, we've had we've had subtle teachings all our life, in pop culture,
Hmm.
but we get to see them in that way. When something opens inside, there's a lot of great spiritual people who don't do art. They do business, or they're chefs, or
Yeah.
man, you should see Harmon lately. The guy is glowing. Every time I see him, I feel like I don't need any lights in the room. He's just he's really looking good.
Wow.
Um, which is nice. I think they're coming back. Let's say in a few weeks, they'll be back on your side of the world,
They will. They
and
will.
and we'll
And
miss them over here. But
and I just want to just to give the viewers like a little just maybe a chronological. You don't have to spend long on it, but a little background of your life. Um, like how did you get into art? When did this first happen for you? And then maybe a little bit about these other masters you were with or got a
yeah,
chance to meet.
I grew up in a small town in the state of Washington, and you just do what's in front of you: first grade, second grade, third grade, middle school, high school. 3 days after graduating from high school, something in me was finally allowed to be free. I took off traveling. I hitchhiked for the first time in my life, stuck my thumb up about the side of the road, and ended up San Francisco to New York. And then after a while, you feel a little guilty. You feel like you got to go straight again. And so I came back home, tried to do what was expected, to continue to do what was expected, like my first 18 years. Didn't work. Joined the army. Boom. Special forces.
Oh,
Boom. This is
wow.
like, and I mean, I didn't have a big war or anything like that, but I mean, I was looking for some way to expand into something larger. And
Hmm.
as soon as I could, I did. I mean, maybe everybody does. Not everybody. I'm on a mailing list from my high school class. There's probably like 4 or 5 people who live out of the country, and the rest, oh my God. And you read, I mean, that wasn't allowed for me. I was in Okinawa in the end of the army. I got discharged, went down to Australia, lived for a year and a half, came up to India for the first time in my life. And I had no idea what I was doing. My self definition at that time was a traveler. So I'd get on the train, go to Pondicherry. Pondicherry, check. Go to Rameshwaram, check. I mean, just I did
Yeah.
10,000 kilometers in 3 months. And then it was time to leave. And this is an interesting thing that probably we all experience, but it's rare. Sitting in the back of the bus, going from Amritsar, from India into
Hmm.
Pakistan,
Yeah.
a voice came into my head and said, "Don't worry, you'll be back, and the population of India will be doubled, and you'll be in your 40s." No 20-year-old kid can imagine being 40, you know? You can't, I mean, 40s, what?
Yeah.
But the voice was so clear. And I ended up going to Europe, and I hitchhiked all the way through the middle. In those days you could go Afghanistan, Iran. Oh man, it was wonderful. Maybe it took almost a year. I got to Munich, and my mother had left sent a letter to me saying my brother, 2 years younger than me, was in Mallorca, Spain, studying something called the science of creative intelligence. And that meant nothing to me except I noticed my body, immediately packed my bags. I hitchhiked 40 hours to Barcelona, caught the boat out to Mallorca, found this place where he was, went into this hotel. There was no people, but there was a picture of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. And what did my first thought? Oh, that publicity seeker. But it turned out to be my brother was working on a teacher training course to teach people how to teach TM.
Oh, wow.
And we worked in the kitchen, and I saw Maharishi every day for 15 months. I mean, plus, chopping onions,
Yes,
whatever.
yes.
And one day from Mallorca, we went to Fujifonte in South Italy for another 3 months, the first day of spring till the first day of summer. And somebody made an announcement. There's a plane leaving to America for $140. And I got on it. My first time back in America in 5 years, the Army, Australia, Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what to do. But I mean, I went and saw my mother, tears on her eyes because she hadn't seen me in a long time. And what I don't really remember, except that the meditation thing would not go away. And I wanted to get back to whatever was going on around Maharishi. And years went by, some vasanas came up. I wasn't the best meditator. I was trying to go to college. I mean, different life stuff, karma stuff happened. Years later, a girlfriend broke up with me. I started meditating again, just, because I had all this emotional sadness.
Right.
It was the best thing that ever happened to me. And within a few weeks in Seattle, my hometown, I was driving I was in the U District, north of the city. I was going to go downtown to get the Sunday New York Times, have an espresso, maybe a microbrew after a while. And I'm in the left turn.
Oh.
If somebody had been next to me, I would have crashed. If a pedestrian was walking across the northbound freeway ramp, I would have killed him. And I'm suddenly on this freeway going opposite direction north. And I remembered I had seen a poster somewhere in the city. Mata Amritanandamai Ama was in this giving a course, a retreat up near the San Juan Islands. And so I drove up there. Man, I'm going to start crying because grace, huh? I drove into this place. I'd been there at a church camp like 20 years before or something. There was a pile of shoes. I'd been in India before. I couldn't remember who Durga was, but I went in and there was this room and there was Amma, giving darshan. So these things strike deep because it's true. And that night she did Devi Baba. I stayed there. I was awake the whole night. The next day she's gone. I go back to Seattle. I could see the aura on every person downtown Seattle at rush hour. I mean, something. And then that went away, wore off. A few days later, I saw her program. She was going to be in Santa Fe. And if I got in my car now and drove to Santa Fe, I could see her again. And going out the door, I grabbed my passport. I never went back to Seattle. Amma was in Santa Fe. Again, that amazing spiritual energy, samadhis around her, especially in those days, it was so intimate and so many very special enlightened people, or soon to be enlightened people. And I got a job. A few months later, this is October 94, I was in her ashram in India.
Wow.
I've mostly been here since. That first 6 months in her ashram, oh my God. I probably had 15 seconds of clarity in the whole 6 months. Vasana's coming up. I had a crush on somebody. I was washing pots in the kitchen. And I mean, just to be around a power source is not so easy, especially when you're a little bit impure with me, like I was. I ended up touring India with her. My 6-month visa was up. My 6-month ticket was up. My $800 were gone. Back to Santa Fe. I had that old car that I'd driven down there. I'd parked it in somebody's lot. It started up with some help. Turned on the radio. It was the same song as 6 months before, Four Non-Blondes. I tried everything that I remembered to make me happy. Meet a girl, smoke a joint, drink a beer. Nothing worked.
Right.
And I just had to get back to India. It took about 11 months, but I've not made that mistake again to go back for a long period of time. It's just I was in Amish ashram for a few years, and then, would go see Sai Baba and Papaji in Lucknow and come to Tiruvannamalai. And then finally it came where I realized my job was not to be an ashramite. And that's when I really located over to Tiruvannamalai pretty permanently, because it's a fabulous place to meditate. Ramana Ashram is there. This process of self-inquiry seems to be a place we all get to. We're having good experiences, but who's having them?
Mm-hmm.
And so that self-inquiry is a really wonderful technique, for me at least, at the end of years of different structured meditations, Vipassana and
Right. Yeah.
Goenka and the inner light, inner sound, and of course the mantra meditation of Maharishi. So, India, what did I do everywhere I went? I would have art supplies with me. I would be in Amazashram, but I would think, oh no, I shouldn't be an artist. I would give the art supplies away to the kids in the village. But a few weeks later, I find I'm picking up stuff, a big part of my art is just finding
Found
things.
objects, yeah.
Yeah. And I'd be making this cool stuff again. And so, slowly, when I relocated over to Tiruvannamalai, I still have the first piece of art I ever made. It was like sticks with a ball at the top, a ball at the bottom, wrapped in string, and it was ascension or descension, which is kind of the principle of what we are. We're spirit and we're matter, and we're in that space in between. So that I just slowly became more comfortable with the process and the act of making art. And it wasn't necessarily my self-definition. I'm an artist. But it was certainly a practice. And in 2005, I had an exhibition in Bangalore, which, if I think back, that gallery was very graceful to give me a show. Some foreign guy from 200 kilometers away, but they liked my stuff. And then again in 2009, and she called me up this last November, and then in December, and then in January, and it somehow seemed in the cosmos was the thought that Gregory should have another exhibition at her gallery. So this is transpiring. So now I'm really focused. So only production.
Right.
So I've talked for a long time, but I hope it's useful.
Yeah, absolutely. So your art, you obviously you lived an interesting life and slowly came to understand that spirituality is where your heart is, and you kind of need to focus your life around spirituality, while at the same time you're understanding like your core expression is an artist. That's kind of like what I got out of what you're saying.
Yeah, I studied engineering. I lasted at Boeing Airplane Company for 16 weeks and I quit because I couldn't, and my friends became much more interesting immediately. But trying to do what your parents thought you should do,
right?
That's a theme for many of us all our lives, trying to fit in, because as a kid we're taught to fit in. Do this, don't do that. And so it's taken a long time.
Yeah.
The cool thing about spirituality, when that self is identified in the silence that is within us, all these things don't matter anymore. It just, in my case, took about 30 or 40 years and maybe a couple more lifetimes. I don't know. But Simran, I think she had some awakening, let's say 25 years ago.
Yeah, she was 27. Yeah.
And so, it comes in an instant. Some of us slowly over a long period of time. And everybody's path is different. I sometimes mock Christianity, but I have to say I have a Christian brother, and he's very, very, very sincere and a really good guy. So even though the belief structure doesn't hit with me, I always feel if you stop that belief on your journey, you stop too soon. There's an experience in self. People will say, I believe, without knowing what is an I or what is belief, let alone what it is they believe in. So, but that's my path. And for my brother, it's different. And for my other brother, it's different again. And for you, and now we're in a world of 8 billion people? Everybody's on the same path. but no one knows it. You could say, for
Yeah.
me, all religions are the same, but no one believes that if they're in one.
Hmm.
My religion,
Yeah.
you know.
Right.
But
Yeah.
so, I mean, as much as the wars going on right now, and oh my God, I cannot read about Israel, Gaza, or Ukraine and Russia, but this is in essence a spiritual planet. Everybody's plucked into the place where they're learning the lessons they need to have to find out that they're more than just this mind and body and the story.
Right.
But
Yeah. That's what I'm saying all the time. I'm like, there's people in my life going through things, and I'm like thinking to myself, I should take my own advice too. And because what I've been saying is like, don't get fooled by the story. And
oh, who are you without your story? Best words I ever heard.
yeah.
And
Um,
even the self inquiry, who am I? It actually comes to a point. It's like, what is an I? It's not even personal.
mhm.
We like to think it is. I have a little bit of a sore hip, so I spend a lot of the day lying down and not
Yeah.
doing heavy work. But and I had to ask, like, am I less because I can't physically do so much today? No.
Right. Yeah.
Your father, when he passed, what, did he have a long illness or short?
It was kind of short. Yeah, it was about 3 months. Yeah.
Did he handle
Mm.
it well?
Actually, he did. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, what more can you ask?
Yeah. Yeah. We weren't sure how things were gonna go, but once he started to pass, he looked at me, he's like, I think it's gonna be peaceful. And
Ah, perfect.
and then
Good.
and then I was with him a lot of the time during the passing, and I'm trying to just create, a loving environment and chanting and things like this, and bringing down anything that I possibly, potentially could bring, and that's it, So it's yeah,
My
I think it's good.
my father. That's good. My father once came to a meditation lecture I gave, and afterwards he told me something. I understand the words, but I don't feel the feeling, which means his vocabulary he couldn't relate to spirituality. So I might chant around him, but it wouldn't he
Yeah,
might want to hear Beethoven or something
yeah,
like
yeah,
that. But that was you doing what you could. And
yeah,
it's something we all get to do in the weirdest way. I mean, Earth is such a ridiculous place that you're born into this body which rots and dies. What
yeah,
was God thinking? My God.
yeah. It's weird. Yeah,
It's totally weird. But one time I had a out of the body experience in a healing workshop, and ever since, I mean, there's a saying in mystic: what we think of as inside is really outside, and what we think of as outside is really inside. And
yeah,
it's the senses that flip it around. So once I had that experience of inversion, and then at the end of that experience, I had to come back into the body. I've not had a bit of fear about death or missed
yeah,
anybody who died. Not my mom, not my dad. I mean,
yeah. That's
it's
amazing.
it's
Yeah, that's
it's part
amazing.
of the joke.
I had this similar experience. My mother actually passed away about 15 years ago, and
Whoa.
I think right before that, it was like 3 days before, I heard this ringing in my ear, and when I was about to lie down, and it was like just bing, and I didn't know. I'm like, okay, what is this? And instead of trying to like shake myself out of it, I just kind of like surrendered to it or let it be there. And then I rose out of my body uh,
Whoa.
while I was lying down and went above it. And I what I felt was just I'm so completely whole. There was nothing missing at all. And I'm also out of my body, but everything was so there in its fullness. And then slowly I went back into my body. And just like you said, it was the such a blessing because it just gave me the experience that yes, like we're not this body, we're not like we're more than the body. I think it's important for people to have that just experience, you know. Otherwise, there's this like, you know,
Some,
people will doubt, you know, they don't really know. But the experience is such a blessing.
it's cool that you tell me that. Sometimes your art on Instagram has this
Yeah,
outness. You know
yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean? It's some. I really resonate with that. Sometimes I think maybe a couple of months ago, a kind of drawing you did that was particularly that, if I remember right. I
Hmm.
mean, the body.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. So a little bit more about just about your art and stuff like that and your subject matter. Do you have like do you just are you completely intuitive in the moment? I'm just curious about like where you get your subject matter specifically now that we're kind of on that topic.
Here in Tiruvannamalai, a lot of my work began. It's some still out on the wall, some sold. Maybe we can post pics later. With the scraps that wood shops throw away, they'll cut out a window and it has a curve on the top, so they'll cut the
Hmm.
square and then they'll cut that curve, and that curve is I got stacks of those things, and
Hmm.
I'm kind of famous in coming through on my bicycle loaded down with pieces of wood, and how how my hands work is something that has very little to do with planning in mind. Although the evolution, so putting found objects together in cool ways. I mean, my table here is filled with them. But I started to make my own parts, which means my intellect was taking over. And I had a couple art classes, but I was never really trained. And it's kind of sad. Right out in front of this place, I have made bonfires of work, which years later I realized was really good. But in that time, I didn't know it was good. You understand?
Oh,
You know
I
what I
see.
mean?
Yeah. Right.
Oh, I mean, I would be famous if I kept all those pieces. It's just too weird. Self-taught is it's good. You're going to do something that no one else does, but you lack the confidence. At least I lack the confidence to say this is art and it's
Hmm.
good, or
Right.
this is
Yeah.
this is accurate.
I see.
But
There's pros
how
and cons. Yeah.
yeah, how I work is I would say 5 times in the last year, I've woken up in the morning with a clear, like the last dream segues into something that's a vision of something I want to make. And every time it's been something I've never made before. I've got, there's examples of that in this room. And so those I will try to like, okay, I had the vision, let's fulfill it. But other times it's just like, God, I have stuff out here on the table that I actually don't know what I'm doing, but the thought has come, put this here, and then put this here, and then another, oh, if you do this. So do we call that intuitive? Are we visionary artists and we should market ourselves in the outsider art world? I don't know. Uh, it is such a lovely process, though, to be caught up in the discovery of making something new. And in my particular case, once I know what it wants to be, the interest drops a little bit because now it's just the grunt work to finish it. And so I'm really good at starting things. There's that room, there's the room beyond, there's outside, there's filled with pieces that if I kind of had the exploration, the discovery,
Hmm.
and now it's like I have to go through the actual work, and it's no longer play and discovery. It is a little bit, but there's also just a lot of discipline and a lot of routine. Like, okay, you started this, you know what it's going to be. Go ahead and finish. Put on the gold leaf. Take off
Hmm.
this part. Finish painting that. I have. I guess I can't grab one. I can. Oh, that's interesting. I forget I'm cabled. So this is part of a piece that's going to go on here, and it's about Hiranyagarbha, which is
Ah.
the
Oh, I
cosmic
love
egg, the
it. I love
cosmic
it.
womb.
Yeah, that's kind of like the one
Oh,
right behind me.
and
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and this will be the piece that's gold leaf
Yeah.
that fits in that, and it's a little bit like
Oh my
Yoni's,
God. That's gonna
but
be beautiful.
so I mean, it will be. But now that I know what it is, It's like that's just work to finish it. Mostly
Oh,
it's
right.
just work,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So at that point, you take pride in the craft, and you know, should I leave it rough? Should I highly polish it?
Hmm.
You ever heard the phrase finish, finish, fetish art? That's guys where the surface is absolutely chrome and
Hmm.
that really into this. I'm not quite that guy. I
Yeah.
never will be this incarnation.
Yeah.
This, I mean, there's stuff here. What is this? Body putty like Bondo with
Hmm.
automobile enamel on it. There's these things are around the world, Aranatsalas. And there's what's this? This is beads. But so I'd had some experiences with Aranathala. You know, every year on Kartik Deepam, the full moon, in usually November or December, 1 million people come here, and they
Hmm.
light this light on the top of the mountain. One time, I'm walking out across the field by Yogi Ram Sarat Kumar's ashram, and it was suddenly 6 o'clock, and you hear there's fireworks, and around the mountain you could hear the 1 million voices, Arogara, Arogara, and the mountain in my vision turned into 1,000 points of light. And I did a double take. It went back to stone and trees, and then I relaxed again, and it was 1,000 points of light. But it makes sense. There's 1 million human beings all focusing on the same thing, and so we kind of go into a different dimension. But in that time, or because of that experience, I mean, I love shiny stuff, and I bought I bought gemstones, and I made the mountain with lots of gemstones on
Hmm.
it, um, pearls, beads,
Wow.
somehow to. So now I'm stuck into materials. I on one piece might be automobile enamel, some plastic. I'm looking at stuff. I won't go get it. The phone will fall over again. But there's this multidimensionality that comes into the materials in art is a reflection of the multidimensionality of our own being. We're in the body, but we have this many, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth,
Hmm.
maybe up to 12 dimensions. Our higher self is a common language, or we say we see auras on someone. We're just seeing their subtle body. India has this great phrase, sukshma sharira, subtle body,
Mm.
and the koshas, the sheaths over. So, so this multidimensionality, if I do it good in art, I'm hoping the viewer, if not overtly, will subconsciously feel his own multidimensionality.
Hmm.
So I've been making, I don't know if when you were here, if I brought a couple pieces of art to the red dot, but that
Yeah.
little gold Buddha guy down there,
Hmm.
I mean,
I
that's
was
the
there.
self.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
witnessing.
Yeah. I
And,
love it.
and yeah, it's just, I mean, how do we how do we be good citizens via art? I'm not going to go feed people in Gaza, but how do I create a positive environment in the world by what I'm naturally doing within myself anyway? And so there comes a certain kind of value. I, I had a few years where I went to a lot of art shows, Frieze and FIAC in Paris and Art Basel in Hong Kong and the Korean. And I realized the art world really doesn't get spirituality so much. They get good art. And there's a lot of art that is definitely good art, but it's also stress on the walls. And if you hang it in your living room, you'll be divorced in 6 months.
Yeah. Yes.
But it is good art.
Yeah. It is.
And the
Yeah.
real,
It's sophisticated. Yeah. It's sophisticated. It's good, but yeah, it's devoid of like it's the evolutionary unfolding of like this consciousness, which it's.
I met a guy in London one time at Frith Street Gallery, and he was a big collector. And he said, "Next week is FIAC in Paris, and are you
Mhm.
coming?" And I said, "Yes." So he invited me to his. He has an apartment in Paris because just for the art world, he had an apartment in London.
Mhm.
He's a LA old TV producer, but he had this gathering at his house, and there was, how would we say, art galleries basically have good salesmen. There's the owners, but there's the
Yeah.
guys who meet and mingle.
Right.
And they talked about the number of collectors in the world, and the art world really runs on about 300 or 400 mega collectors. The guy who buy, this for 6 million, this for 100 million.
Hmm.
Those guys are smart. They keep that stress art in warehouses, but what's in their home is only soft and
Yeah,
beautiful, and
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
so so I could maybe make some jagged, angry art, but I prefer the soft and the beautiful and the gentle and the expanding. That's just who I've become now,
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. It kind of like
You play
represents.
you play music,
I do,
and
yeah.
you can go
Yeah.
or you can go da 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 da, and there is a difference.
Yeah. I think they probably all have a role, and like the art just represents like different forces that are kind of resisting a expansion of consciousness. And
Oh, that's true.
but you kind of, it's like you almost, you could think about it like you need the resistance in order for
Mm.
the true force of consciousness and love to come forward with power and confidence. It has to break through the shell. It has to crack the
Oh,
egg in order
that's
to,
nicely stated.
yeah.
Critical
So
mass, critical mass.
yeah, so it's like they play their role, their angsty art, the role that is like almost anti-love, you know. Unfortunately, it's hard to look at, but maybe it has a place. It's, it may be interesting to look at,
Do we
but
break
it's
up?
no, I can hear you
Are we,
fine. Can you hear
okay,
me?
good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you read the news in America right now, there's a super genius guy, Elon Musk, who's doing great stuff in the American government. But if you realize all the people that are burning Teslas or who hate him, or we're not very bright yet as a species. Our audience who understands what you just said about this blossoming into a
Hmm.
larger reality is still small. It's still small. Um, we we're kind of graced because wherever you and I go, we're going to meet like-minded people.
Hmm.
But if you read the news, this planet is still in Neanderthal times. Fear-based politics, fear-based economics, fear-based relationships. So how do we live? We try to ashrams. I used to think the walls were to keep the ashramites in. No, the walls are to keep the world out.
Yeah. Yeah.
We do need a little
Yeah.
we do
There.
need a little bit of protection.
I think it's necessary to a certain degree, and as one builds strength, then they slowly integrate out of the protection. At least that's my
Yeah,
thought. Yeah.
I agree. We don't need it after a while. Once you know
Yeah.
you're strong, you're strong.
Yeah.
But in that delicate flower stage, it's really nice to have a guru, have a master, have
Abs
a circle of friends, a company of like-minded people.
Absolutely.
We're so lucky. Here in Tiruvannamalai, there's probably 6 or 7 saints I can go visit on a given day. And some are public, Darshan is there, some are private. But to have that energetic transmission or that living example, back in Seattle, I never had this. I mean, the average guy in America has, or in anywhere in the world, even here locally. No, I will not say that. Indians, some common guys enlivened a temple the other day that just a mason. There was as much Shakti as if they were pujaris and brahmacharis. They know here in this
Hmm.
culture. But the blessings to have a saint in your life, or just someone slightly more conscious than you,
Right.
oh,
Yeah.
cannot be underestimated. And you said I kind of devoted my life to meditation. Yeah, in many ways, I've been in the rules of the world. I did many bad things, abandoned people or betrayed people or whatever. But just to get into the place that I needed to live, that's how it had to happen. And
Yeah.
so I'm lucky in the long run. If I've created some bad karma, well, I'll have to take care of it next lifetime. But
Yeah, it seems like, at the end of the day, the main goal is is the divine, and if you get to the divine, a lot of these, these worldly story things, they're not as significant anymore. Um,
The Christians got the whole story. It's my Father's pleasure to give you the kingdom. I mean, nature supports. Kingdom of heaven within. I mean, it's just, but we get stuck into belief or patterns or our community, and we think God's out there. No, God's in here. If we
mhm.
even need to use the God word, which I actually
Yeah,
don't think we need anymore,
right.
self
Yeah.
is okay. Capital S, self. How should we keep going on this, or
Well, no,
how would
I,
you?
I think this is great. I think I had like little bullet points of questions and stuff, but it was interesting. You answered every single one, and just in your free form talking and in a very just natural way, which I loved. But I think one thing I would maybe just see what your thought is like for the aspiring artist, that's like, hey, this day and age, they want to make art, or even just aspiring spiritual person. Do you have a certain thought that you'd like to share with them
Do you
on
know the Do
their
you know the
growth?
artist? The artist called Chuck Close. He's died now, but he was in a wheelchair for
Yes, I
years.
remember. I know him. Yeah.
So he had a great saying: "Amateurs wait for a vision. The rest of us just work." So just do something.
Mm,
Don't know what you're doing. Don't want to. I mean, I was a sucker for vision and inspiration for a long time. If it comes, I'll do it, and nothing's coming, I'm not going to do anything. That's wrong. Just work. And it's the same about spirituality. Not every day can I meditate, or do I even want to? Or and for years I did not. From learning and having all these great experiences, and then somehow another life, another aspect of myself took over, and I didn't for a long time. Thank God that girlfriend broke up with me. Um, so it's like this. Just trust your faith and trust. Glauben und Vertrauen in Deutsch. There's a small booklet by Hermes that faith and trust. Faith in ourselves, trust in ourselves, and just do what we feel called to do. And there's
mhm.
not any right or wrong in an absolute sense. Is that good?
Yes. Thank you so
Okay.
much. Really
Okay.
lovely. Really lovely
Yeah, how are
talking to you.
you?
Yeah. Yeah.
You might have to turn down my voice because I've been shouting this whole time because I'm all excited and you're my first conversation all day. Um,
No.